Welcome to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you are ready to find your inner magic, develop great habits, and a rock steady mindset to feel confident, comfortable, and fit in your body, you are in the right place. I am Kim Barnes Jefferson, and I'll be giving you weekly doses of health, fitness, and life tips sprinkled with humor and real talk. If you're ready to be consistent without the stress of perfection, magic makers, it's time to slip into your favorite pair of PJs, grab some coffee, kick back, and listen to today's show. Hey Magic Makers, it's this week's iTunes review. Amy W. Fitness says, Kim knows her stuff. Keeps it real on all levels. 5 stars. Awesome podcast series on relatable topics that women deal with. Kim's advice, along with her sense of humor, is what everyone needs to find their fit girl magic. Well, thank you so much, Amy W. Fitness. That warms my heart. If you haven't yet left your review, please head over to iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and hit rate. And then hopefully it's a 5-star hint and leave me a review. Thanks. Hey, Magic Makers. Today I had a great conversation. It was all about vegan. You know, many of you are, I'm going to call you vegan curious. You are thinking about going vegan. You want to know more about vegan. And you ask a lot of questions, and I was like, you know what? I need to bring someone onto the show that just knows their stuff. And that's what I did. And we talked all about what the heck is Beyond Meat, Impossible Burgers. How do you fit that into your nutrition? Or do you? How do you make it work when you're the only vegan in the house? Where do you go? Where can you eat vegan foods or good vegan food? And it's not just freaking tofu or French fries, so those are the kind of questions that we talked about today. And, she gave some amazing tips, tricks, hacks, and have a listen. And I'd love to hear your feedback. Like, what's one takeaway that you got from today's show? Okay. So many of you have asked me the question about veganism, and I get it. It's totally like this hot new thing out there. I think it's almost as hot as keto. I'm not sure. We'll have to ask. Anywho, I know enough to be dangerous. I read, I research because I got to keep up with y'all. But when you run out of runway with your knowledge, you got to tap into experts. And so I found me one. Her name's Valeria Hernandez, and one is adorable. So follow her on Instagram. But 2, I like her a lot because she's reasonable. She's not one of these like vegan Nazis out there that is like, plants for life and, wearing hemp clothes and, all that magical stuff. She's a normal person who can help you transition or find that balance, like I like to call it vegan-ish. So we're going to have this frank conversation about veganism. And, I'd love for you guys to chime in to either myself or Val and just ask us questions because there's so much, I'm going to say it, bullshit out there that we want to cut through that right now. And so I'm sure as you're listening, you might have heard some bullshit and you might, is this bullshit or is this true? So definitely hit us up. I'm going to give you all the socials in our in the show notes. So all right, I want to welcome Val to the show.
Hey everyone, my name is Valeria and I go by Vale and my Instagram is Veggie Vale because I love vegetables. But as Kim said, I am a vegan health coach. So I really think it's so important as a vegan to be as welcoming as possible. Not everyone wants to go 100% vegan, and I'm totally okay with that. But I think it's important for you to have knowledge on it so that you can make an empowered decision and really eat in alignment with your ethics, with, if you care about sustainability, about animals, having that knowledge so that you can have a diet that helps you feel energized, helps you thrive and feel your best and just feel super good about what you're eating. And you don't feel shame for, maybe slipping up sometimes because we're all human and that's okay.
And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted you on the show, is because you aren't one of these like hardcore, like if you are not in the vegan lane, it's like, from time to time, maybe you have a craving for a hamburger. Go for
Mm-hmm.
it, versus, well, it wasn't plant-based, so you're no longer vegan.
Right. Yeah. And I think that I call them militant vegans.
Yes.
I understand where their passion comes from. I truly do, because I've just watched so many horrific slaughterhouse videos. And once you see those things, it's kind of hard to disassociate from the animal products.
Right.
But at the same time, not everyone has seen those slaughterhouse videos, and not everyone wants to see them. It's very traumatizing, especially if you're an empath and have, are a highly sensitive person like myself. So it's important to remember, the militant vegans aren't the entirety of the vegan movement. In fact, I think that they make up a smaller percentage than we think. They're just kind of the loudest. So there tends to be this stereotype when it comes to vegans of like, they walk in the room and tell everyone they're vegan and they think that they're better than you and all these things, when in reality, most of the vegans I know in real life are the complete opposite of that. They're like the most humble humans, and they just want to live in a more compassionate, sustainable place. And I think that at the end of the day, like, we all want that.
Right. So now, what made you go vegan?
Yeah. So my vegan journey started when I was pretty young, actually. I didn't go vegan when I was young, but I was eating fish. I was around like 8 years old, 9 years old. And my dad said, "Oh, that fish you're eating could be Flounder's cousin." At the time, I was obsessed with The Little Mermaid. Ariel was my jam. Like, she was my favorite. I just really I've always been fascinated by the ocean and marine life. And that kind of incited this light bulb moment. And as a kid, I made that connection of like, the fish I'm eating used to be alive. And similar to like how flounder is alive and is happy and has friends, like that fish that I was eating used to have a life. So ever since then, I was like very wary of eating meat. My parents told me I needed it for protein, and I grew up Mexican. So it's a very meat heavy food culture. And I had to write a persuasive essay in high school to finally convince them to let me go vegetarian. So I went vegetarian when I was 15. And then just through more research and watching documentaries and getting exposed to, all the different reasons why people reduce their animal product consumption, like their health and environmental reasons, sustainability, and also animal rights. I finally met my first vegan friend in college, and before meeting her, I thought all vegans ate was like salad and wheatgrass shots. I thought it was like this super intense, what you were saying about like wearing all hemp and like just eating all the green things and nothing else. But she showed me that it's actually pretty practical and pretty easy, especially now in 2020. I can't think of a single thing that can't be veganized now. So it's pretty amazing. But I went vegan 5 years ago now. And at first I was very confused and very lost. But I realized, I kind of had to hit this low point, which many of us, we get to that point where we're sick and tired of our BS and we are like, something needs to change. So I hit that point when I was junk food vegan. And I felt like absolute garbage. And I was like, I'm vegan and I'm not even healthy. Like, what the hell? Like, this is bullshit. Like, I didn't sign up for this. I want to be healthy. Like, I'm vegan. What's the deal? And I realized I hired a health coach, and she made me realize, the actual things I'm eating are not healthy. Like, I'm eating highly processed, it was a lot of like vegan substitutes, pizza. It was a lot of that junk. So she helped me figure out how to eat whole foods, plant-based. And ever since then, I've been raving about the health benefits of even just like being mostly plant-based. I'm totally plant-based vegan, but most of my clients that I work with, they don't go 100% vegan, but they will go like mostly plant-based. And I think having that flexibility for them makes it less intimidating as well.
Right. So let's, there's like so many things that I'm like, oh crap, we got to unpack. I was like, I was taking notes as you were writing. So but step one is the ethical, I'm going to call it the ethical vegan, right? And there are many of them.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of clients who that's them, they made that connection like you did, and you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
man, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those people, I think the switch is pretty easy because they just have, just made that association. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
second piece of it is that, you mentioned how maybe I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, I go into the grocery store and I see these plant-based products.
Mm-hmm.
How am I to know what is, the junk food
Mm-hmm.
versus the true stuff that has they've actually taken the time to create a true healthy plant-based product?
Mm-hmm. Such a good question. Um, I think the easiest way when you're in the grocery store physically is ask yourself, where am I? Like, am I in the perimeter or am I in the inside part where there's a lot of the packaged things and the processed things? And I'm not saying that, anything that's gone through a process is inherently bad for you, but it is good to stay, in your produce section or like with the whole grains, the legumes. Those are your whole foods, plant-based things. And when you get closer into the inner part of the grocery store and you have, maybe like your Beyond Burgers or your veggie burgers, it's more of a matter of reading the ingredients
Mm,
label. Like that is so, so, so key,
yes.
because just because something says plant-based doesn't mean that it's healthy. And I think the term plant-based is kind of, like you said, this hot buzzword where
Right.
companies use it interchangeably with vegan, but for me, plant-based means like it's literally based off of plants.
Right.
And I don't think, I mean, technically a Beyond Burger, at some point it was a plant, but like it doesn't really resemble a plant at all anymore. And like Beyond Burger, I think I would classify that as like more towards like the vegan junk food side of things. And I'm not saying it's bad for you. Would I say eat it every day? Like, I wouldn't recommend that.
Right.
But yeah, knowing just what is actually in your food is so crucial when you're trying to make that decision of like, okay, is this good for me? Is this something I want to eat every day? Or is this going to be more of a treat, like, the 20% of the 80/20 lifestyle?
Right. So it's funny that you talked about Beyond Burgers, and it's Beyond, I think, Impossible. I can't think of the other brand that's out there that's kind of become this like behemoth. So for you,
Mm-hmm.
like my kind of brand that I'm always like, just don't buy from them,
Mm-hmm.
and is Morningstar. Like they just always have been just very processed,
Mm-hmm.
like, and it's a, like you said, it's a limited thing to have. It's like having Cheerios or
Mm-hmm.
having, going to McDonald's. I'm never going
Right.
to say don't go to McDonald's, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say it's not going to be your 80% of your meal.
Exactly.
So for those people listening, and I want to give two snaps up and a tic tac to Beyond and Impossible for the marketing that they've done, because they've done a really great job, especially
Mm-hmm.
feeding into this vegan frenzy, if you will. But
Mm-hmm.
for people listening and you're trying to do this as for a health benefit, sure, have one at a barbecue, great, but are you having it every week? Is it replacing the beef that you normally have? Maybe that's something for you to take a step back and say, okay, maybe it's once or twice a month I have, not every week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think the mission of these companies is not to like have the healthiest human population. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying they're like directly going against on our health on purpose. Their whole mission is to make animal products obsolete. Um, which, are we ever going to have a 100% vegan world? I don't know. I highly doubt it.
Right.
Maybe a pessimist or a realist, who knows? But I think it is so good to have those options for people who maybe want to reduce their carbon footprint or just can't stomach the idea of eating a dead animal. So it is important to like have those options. But again, like let's not get confused on just because it's vegan doesn't mean it's healthy. You know,
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point that you made there, because I feel like so many people, think going vegan is healthier.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think it's like a runway, right? I'm at an airport and I can take the left runway or I can take the right runway. And
Mm-hmm.
so right or left isn't better, it's just different.
So true. And there's actually this statistic that blows me away, which is part of the reason why I even decided to become a vegan health coach is like 85% of the people that go vegan don't end up staying vegan. They end up going back to eating meat and animal products and whatever else they ate before going vegan. I think a huge part of that is that they don't go vegan in a way that is actually benefiting them
Mm-hmm.
in an actual healthy way. They are just kind of winging it. They're kind of
Mm-hmm.
Googling, going off free resources offline. Maybe they use like PETA's vegan starter guide. And at the end of the day, like no hate on PETA, they're primarily an animal rights group. Actually, some hate because they do very problematic things. But they're mainly an animal rights group. So
Right.
their main concern is not your health, it's saving animal lives.
Right.
So when you're following their guide, like you're not following the tips from like a nutritionist or a dietitian or like a health coach that actually knows what the F you need to be eating for your health, or getting your vitamins, getting your B12, iron, all these things that like vegans tend to be deficient in because there's just not enough talk about what it looks like to be a healthy vegan and be eating meals that are balanced and fulfilling, so that you can actually stick with veganism and not be one of the statistics like in the 85%.
All right. So like that's a great segue. So, what would a healthy vegan look like? Like what a healthy vegan eat?
So good. Great question. I would say, so I'm just going to speak to like what I eat and what I teach
Mm,
because I consider myself pretty healthy. I like to practice what I preach.
right.
So I stick to main food groups like legumes. So that's our beans, our lentils, edamame, chickpeas, all of that like good plant protein, as well as whole grains. So like quinoa, brown rice, oatmeal, whole grain bread, pasta, like whole grain pasta or gluten free. Sorry. There's like that protein pasta now too, which is so good. And then we have our produce, right? Like our fruits, vegetables, literally so many options there. I could just list them for days. And then our seeds, which is a component of healthy fats. So chia seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, so good for like topping meals. These are things that like, we need them every day, but not in large amounts, right? But they're so good for like omega-3s and omega-6s, which like quick side note, Miley Cyrus recently went on vegan, and
Mm.
I'm using air quotes because I just think it's so silly. She's like a multimillionaire and can't figure out how to get omegas in a vegan way. Like there's so many supplements. Um, that was ridiculous. But yeah, seeds are really good. So Miley Cyrus, if you're listening, go eat some flax seeds. And then we have like our avocados, hummus, other good sources of healthy fats that are important as well. So those are kind of like the main, I would call them whole foods, plant-based foods. But then we also have like our treats that we are eating, and that 20% of the time, maybe you really love pizza. So maybe you'll have some Daya pizza or, Beyond Burger. I really love potato chips. I know that's like not a vegan substitute, but that's kind of like my kryptonite. So, but yeah, I think it's really important to like do keep in mind those treats, but also like know your go-to meals that are going to include a source of complex carbohydrates, plant-based protein, and have some vegetables in there as well. That's kind of how I think whenever I'm making lunch or dinner. It's like, where's my carbs, where's my protein, and where's my veggies? And then when I have breakfast, I'll be adding fruit in there. My snacks are typically like some sort of, veggies with a dip or hummus. And that's pretty much what I eat.
So, as you were talking, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so that is all great. So do you meal prep or menu plan at all?
Mm-hmm. I do. I do batch meal prep. So I am the kind of person that I want to like wake up tomorrow and like decide what I'm going to eat for lunch that day. I'm not really huge on like knowing exact what all my meals will be for the next week.
Mm,
I kind of like to go with the flow with my food, but I will have general themes and have things that I can throw together in a fast way. So what I mean by batch meal prepping is like, for example, Sunday. Um, I was about to say that's yesterday, but no, never mind. um, Coronavirus has me all messed up with my days.
I know,
But
everybody.
yeah, Sunday I made a ton, like I think it was like 7 cups of chickpeas. And this is for like me and my boyfriend. I didn't like eat all of it. But I made a ton of chickpeas in my Instant Pot. I made some brown rice, some quinoa. I sauteed black beans with some onion and like a little bit of spices. I sauteed kale and I just like prepped a bunch of like other vegetables and proteins and grains. And what I do throughout the week is I'll just mix and match. So I'll make like a Buddha bowl and top it with like some avocado or a sauce that I have on hand. Or I'll do like a stir fry. Or if I do pasta as one of my complex carbs, I'll make a pasta with some veggies and like roasted veggies. So I like to kind of keep it fun that way, but I'm still preparing things ahead of time so that whenever I come to make my lunch or my dinner, it's going to take me like 10 to 20 minutes max.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that's one of the things I find that I do is like I like variety. So like I'm not gonna
Hmm.
like, have 50 things in Tupperware like ready to go. Like
Right.
I'm more of like a buffet where it's like
Yeah.
I'll have a little of this, a little of that, a little of this. And it's
Hmm.
so one of the things I always tell, when my clients say, "Hey Kim, I want to go vegan," one of the big
Mm.
things I always say to them is you better like to cook.
Yes.
Like and so I know for me, and when we talked before we hit record, I did vegan for 6 months. And one of the
Mhm.
biggest things that I noticed was that, like you, it was very easy to be a junk food vegan. And
Mhm.
I could stock up on all the junk food in this grocery store. But I was like, I didn't want to go that route. But I felt like for me to eat and eat well
Mhm.
and eat tastefully, I had to cook.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so for those people who are, vegan curious,
Mhm.
would you recommend like if you have to truly like to cook, or is it something that, can I know a lot of people will do, takeout and things like that is
Mhm.
can, if you have the budget, is that a sustainable way to be vegan?
Such a good question. So one, my first note is like it really depends on where you live.
Mm,
So, for example, I live in Atlanta and I'm like my apartment is in the city. So I can literally walk to like this bowls salad place that has a ton of different vegan options. So I'm very privileged in that aspect, but like I know a lot of people don't live in areas where vegan eating out is as accessible. Like I know you mentioned you live in New England.
I live in Boston.
Okay. So actually the vegan scene in Boston I've heard is pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I can go out to eat. Like
Mhm.
one of my biggest downfalls with vegan, I hate tofu. Like, do not like. I would get so pissed. Do not try to serve me fucking tofu. Like, it would
Yeah.
always be like it'd be like pasta and tofu, and I'm like, there's more. There's more.
Yeah.
So for me, eating out was very challenging because
Mm.
everything was typically a tofu thing, and I don't do
Yeah.
tofu. Like, then please do not write into me. Well, have you had it this way? I don't fucking like it.
Everyone's gonna like DM you their favorite tofu recipe.
Right. I don't like the only way I like tofu is literally I would make soup and I would
Mhm.
blend the shit out of it and put it in soup.
Mm.
But that was about it.
Okay.
That's about it. So
Yeah.
like I know for me personally, yeah, it's now, this was gosh, 5 years ago. And now I
Mhm.
feel like if I were to go out, I would be have more choices
Yeah.
and I did
Definitely.
5 years ago. But I agree with you. Like if I'm in
Mhm.
East Podunk, no offense if you live in East Podunk, and vegan hasn't come your way, then you're kind of stuck with probably pasta and tofu.
Yeah,
or
or like anything that you can make at home.
Right. Or, a lot of times if I couldn't find something, it would literally be like I would order like 2 salads.
Yes, I think so. I've been vegan for 5 years. In that amount of time, things have changed drastically in the restaurant scene. In my earlier vegan days, it was a lot of like French fries and salad, and
Yeah.
like, or I would just be like quietly drinking my beer because that's vegan and just be mad
Right.
that everyone else was eating around me.
Right.
So some good resources I think are like Google Maps, literally
Yeah.
just typing in vegan food near me, and it'll recommend restaurants that are not necessarily totally vegan, but actually have vegan options. Or if anyone in the reviews has said the word vegan, it'll
Mm.
pull from that. So that's super helpful. And then joining Facebook groups that are like in your area. So I'm in some Atlanta vegan Facebook groups. I'm sure there's like Boston vegan Facebook
Oh,
groups.
for
I'm sure
sure.
I've even I used to live in like Kansas City, and like even suburbs of Kansas City had their own vegan Facebook groups.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's yeah, so it's definitely growing, and like there's probably a Facebook group out there for you. And it's such a great community resource to be go in there and be like, "Hey, I'm new to this. Can y'all help me like find some restaurants where I can eat at?" And if you don't like tofu, be like, I hate tofu. Don't recommend places that have tofu because a lot of people are actually soy free now. It's kind of like one of those things with gluten free that is just kind of taken off.
Right.
So, those soy free people also need options. And I think a lot of vegan restaurants are more willing to take dietary restrictions into consideration because vegan is already a dietary restriction.
Yeah. So, absolutely. And then you kind of, so we talked about eating out. Now, the other thing, one of my, she's a client of mine, and she's been kind of vegan curious for a while, but she's
Hmm.
like, how do I be vegan curious with my family?
Hmm.
And I know, I'd love to hear your takes. I know, when I said I had to go vegan for 6 months, my husband's like, I'm not vegan, right? I was like, no. So what I really ended up doing was I would
Hmm.
make my vegan dishes with a side of protein,
Hmm.
side of animal protein. So that
Hmm.
way, like I got what I needed and he got what
Hmm.
he needed.
Yeah, that's a really good workaround. That's actually what I was going to recommend. Because a lot of times, like our what we eat is a bunch of like different things and different sides along with the animal product. So if you just remove the animal product, and I always tell my clients like add before you subtract.
Right.
So don't just take out the meat and then eat whatever is left over of the sides, like actually add something back in because you're going to be super hungry,
Mm,
especially because plant-based food is a lot less calorie dense than animal products. So you're actually going to be eating more volume wise, which is one of my favorite things about being plant-based. I get to eat a
right.
ton of food. Um, but yeah, going at it that way. Also, identifying like one meal of the day that maybe other people in your family are willing to cut back on the animal products.
Right.
Maybe it's breakfast, maybe it's lunch. But I think, starting with like one meal a day, or even, one meal out of the whole week, if it just feels really hard to do one meal every day, to reduce that friction and just get those small, quick wins. And that way you kind of start to get more creative and like, okay, how can I incorporate this more into the way my family eats? Do they hate vegetables? Like there's a lot of different factors, but I found that, being flexible and open to suggestions from people. Maybe they even want to try a vegan version of their favorite dish. That's something that before my boyfriend went vegan, that's something I would do is like, okay, what is his favorite food? Like make that
Right.
vegan and kind of start to show like, hey, this can actually be really flavorful and delicious and enjoyable. You just gotta open your mind a little bit.
Yeah, agreed. I agree. I think a lot of people don't open their minds
Hmm.
to, the possibilities is the best way to
Yeah.
describe it. Um, and so as you were speaking, like one of the things I started thinking was, or I have two thoughts here. So one of the big things I focus my ladies on is protein. And I know for me, one of my challenges with plant-based products is that, I think it's like anything, marketers get involved. And so they'll put their stamp on it and they'll say, this has protein in it. And so, peanut butter has protein, but it's like, but if you really kind of do the math, it's a fat. So how do you kind of work with your clients in that whole kind of, do you ever talk about exploring the macronutrients in that? Or because it's like, it's really easy for me to be like, while peanut butter, I'm making these numbers up off the top of my head, while peanut butter might have 7 grams of protein, it has 40 grams of fat.
Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely a fat. So I'm actually trained in both macros and portion eating.
Okay.
So whenever, I have a client, I talk to them, see what their lifestyle is, see if they have experience with tracking macros, because that can get a little confusing for people and it sometimes feels intimidating. So I think like eating by portions is sometimes more simple for people that aren't introduced to macros. But as far as like the protein side of it goes, the industry standard for macros does not apply to plant-based diets. There's actually a macro ratio that is specific for plant-based eating because a lot of your proteins do have a higher amount of carbs, but they also have a higher amount of fats. And there's also this other fact that most Americans eat double the amount of protein that they actually need. So taking that into consideration, a lot of times, like when we go plant-based, we are so stressed about the protein when should actually be thinking about like, are we getting enough calories, period?
Right.
Because like I said before, animal products are a lot more calorie dense. So it's easier to,
right. When
a
you
cup of chicken versus a cup of broccoli, like not comparable.
Yeah, no. I like that approach. I like that approach because one of the things I always challenge my clients with is we start with calories and then we could get into the nuances. But you're right. Like one of the one of my girls, she has been vegan for years, and we kind of like separated and we just came back together. And I was like, and she wasn't getting the results she wanted. And I said, okay, well, what are you eating? And she's like, well, I don't measure anything. And I was like, okay. I'm like, so what she's like, it's all plant-based, it's all natural, it's organic, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, you can still overeat tomatoes.
Yeah.
And so, and some of my clients, and I'm sure some of your clients have, diet trauma. So, they used to be that obsessive tracking person. And I was like, if you want to make any changes, we got to know what's going in. And I'm like, even though it is organic and it's whole and you can still overdo it. So I like the fact that you said, start with just tracking the calories and then we can move from calories to like, maybe you're not getting enough calories. So maybe you're overdoing the calories. So then we can starting to be a little bit more nuanced as to, is it kind of scaling back a little bit on, you're having too much peanut butter or you're having too much of something else to like give you those tweaks.
Yeah. And I found that with my clients, like typically the type of person I attract is like very busy, sometimes forget to eat, skip breakfast. They're like skipping breakfast and they're like, oh, it's intermittent fasting. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. Like, okay, how about you explain to me how intermittent fasting works if that's what you claim to be doing? But they're actually under eating and they've been under eating for so long that their metabolism has slowed down. So then when we start working together, I put them on this reverse diet type of meal plan. And they're like, wow, I'm eating so much and I feel so energized. I'm like, yeah, isn't it
shocking?
Great?
Right.
Like what happens when you give your body enough calories?
Yeah. It's funny how, people don't realize, like if you've been like restricted for so long or disordered for so long, you don't know what good feels like.
Yeah. Or sometimes you don't know why, like, you feel that way.
Yeah. I always find that like a lot of my girls will have cravings and I'm like, well, I'm like, I'm looking at your food. I'm like, you're not eating enough. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, you're craving because your body's like, hey, I need some more.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So true.
So that I really like that. So now one of the biggest questions that people are going to be like, all right, we've had great information. Like you're just like, you've answered all the things that I'm like, yes, she's going to talk about that. And we did. Now, how, if I'm like, okay, all right, I've been thinking about this for a while and listening here, how would I start? What would be, how would I, do I just dive into the deep end? Do I
Mm.
wade into the water? What do I do?
So I'm definitely the wait approach because I tried to jump into the deep end and I failed miserably. I would always like quote unquote cheat on Sunday brunch and have my, poached eggs.
Mm.
What's it called? Eggs Benedict. That was my
Oh, yeah.
weakness. Oh my gosh, that was my weakness. I found a restaurant in Atlanta that does tofu Benedict, which is so good. And that was one of my happiest days of my life when I found that out. But yeah, definitely easing into it, I think, is a more sustainable approach because you're not going to overwhelm yourself with
Mm,
so much information.
yes.
And taking it baby steps at a time will actually help you make this a lifelong thing if that's what you want. Because when we're trying to, make healthy habits, as I'm sure you know with your clients, like when you try to do everything all at once, you're cutting out beef and cutting out chicken and dairy and eggs and all the things. It gets to be too much. And then you're like, F this, I'm just going to go back to my old ways. Like, it's not worth it. It's too much. But when you take it one step at a time, like maybe, the easiest thing for you to give up. I always start my clients with like, what's the easiest thing? What's the least amount of
Yeah.
friction? I want you to get that quick win. What's the one animal product that you hardly ever eat? Like, oh, okay, it's fish. All right, from now on, like, no more fish because you didn't really eat it that much, anyways. And then, we try working up our way that way and identifying, like I said, meals where it's a little easier to decide, okay, like from now on, all my breakfasts are going to be plant-based.
Uh,
So I'm definitely a baby steps kind of person.
Me too. Cause I've done multiple times. Like I've done the hardcore, like you go home and you just throw all your shit out and
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, I'm going to eat everything and then I'm going to start. And then
Mm-hmm.
like, like you said, like you are so overwhelmed with like, what can't I have versus what can I
Mm-hmm.
have?
Yeah. And that type of mindset, I think, can also be really triggering for anyone who does have disordered eating past or diet trauma. Focusing on like what you can't have is also just such a like scarcity mindset. It's like there's just such an abundance of plant-based foods. So really, I think, a lot of people say when I'm out and about, my friends, I'll be like, oh, you can't eat that. And I always correct them because I can eat whatever I want. Like, yeah,
Right.
I'm vegan, but at the end of the day, I could go to McDonald's right now and get a double quarter pounder or whatever. I don't even know if that's a thing, but
Right. I know,
um,
me either.
but like I choose not to. It's my decision.
Right.
And I don't think I'm missing out. And I think once you really get a handle of like how to make this work for you and your lifestyle, whether that means, half of the days of the week you eat plant-based and half of the days you
Mhm.
don't, make it work for you. And that way you're going to feel like you're not missing out. And like, it's not, it's not a restrictive diet. It's like a way of life and a lifelong habit.
I absolutely, I love when I, meet people and they have like very similar philosophies that
Mm-hmm.
I had, because I'm like, yes, yes, like that, more of that.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like people always have to choose hard. Like, why do
Mm-hmm.
we have to think that we always have to be on team hard? And there's going to be this merit badge once I like wade through the hard part and come out
Mm-hmm.
on the other side. Like, did you ever see the movie Shawshank Redemption?
I haven't. I know it's such a classic and I need to watch it.
Watch
It's
it.
been on my list.
Yeah, watch it. It's like one of those movies that once you watch it, and like, you know how those movies that come on TV and you see them like 5 zillion times, and
Yeah.
you'll know exactly where it is in the movie. You'll watch it over and over again. That's Shawshank Redemption. So this isn't going to be a spoiler for anyone who's not watched Shawshank. But
Okay.
so in the movie, one of the main characters escapes from prison, and he comes out of like the sludge, and like immediately the rain comes up. It's, cinematic, and the rain comes. And I think that's what people think if they choose the hard path, like if I go hardcore, I'm just going to come, and like, the cinematic moment is going to happen at the end. I don't want to be, this is a spoiler alert. It's not going to fucking happen that way. You're going to, you're just going to be miserable.
Oh, yeah.
For miserable's sake. And, I love her, I love her approach, because it is go for the quick win. So if it means, hey, maybe you only have beef on Sundays, great. That's what it is. Maybe if it's your breakfast is meatless, awesome, right? Pick and choose your battles, and when we were talking before the call started, when I was vegan for 6 months, I couldn't find a creamer that didn't make it taste like water. And so I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm having creamer. That was my way of going vegan. So you can have maybe you're an 80-20 vegan. Maybe you're a 50-50 vegan. There's no, I'm lying. There is a rule book, but you make the rules.
Right. And that's why I think a lot of people have started to call themselves plant-based, because there's more like vagueness around that term. Like it's not so cut and dry, where like vegan is like no animal products ever. Plant-based is like you kind of set the definition for that term, because there's no official definition. So I call myself plant-based vegan, but yeah, I mean, up until, a couple months ago, I used to eat honey, and that's very, very frowned upon in the vegan community. So I'm like kind of outing myself right now. But, I had really insane allergies, seasonal allergies. And the only thing that made it better was honey. And I was not about to buy a ton of Claritin, because it didn't really work. And I hate pharmaceuticals and taking, conventional drugs. I'm very anti that. So, honey was one of those things that like, it was the only thing that was working for me. And of course, I bought it local and made sure it was from like a local beekeeper. But yeah, there's just so many different things like that in the vegan community. For example, like are fly traps vegan? Like if you kill a bug in your home, like I definitely, if I see a cockroach in my apartment, I'm gonna kill it. Like I'll, pray after I kill it, be like, dear God, send this cockroach to heaven. Sorry, I had to kill you, but you, invaded my space, and that's not okay.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, that's not vegan. And I'm just like, whatever. Like,
right.
Okay.
You live with it.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. You are the all knowing vegan police.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I had another question that literally flew out of my head. We're talking about you decide what vegan is and so forth. Yeah, it's gone. But yeah, I absolutely, has been a great conversation. This, the one takeaway that I hope everyone is taking away from this is that you make the rules. You define where you start, you define where you end. Think of it as a process. There's no one size fits all approach to this, right? This is, here it is. This is what it is. It came back in my head. All right. So,
yay.
So I have people who are like, I'm going vegan because I want to feel so much better. Now, I'm going to be honest. I didn't feel any different when I
really?
I didn't.
I was going to ask you that.
I honestly, I did not feel any different. And, so for those people, to bring you up to speed with the hell I'm talking about, I had really high estrogen. And so one of the ways for me to kind of get rid of the estrogen in my body rather quickly was for me to remove all animal products. So ergo, I went vegan for 6 months. I gotta say, at this point, my health was like in the shitter. I was exhausted. I was,
Mm,
I just didn't have, I had zero energy. So
mhm,
my doctor was like, hey, it could just be the estrogen just wreaking havoc through all of your
mhm.
systems. Could be the plant, could be you going plant-based could help you out. I gotta say, I felt like shit. Like all the time, I still felt like shit.
Really? Did it help your estrogen at all?
It totally like if for my estrogen, it was like exactly what I needed just to like a I don't know, a detox, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
For
Yeah,
for
definitely.
for my estrogen, it was exactly what I needed to do. And
Mm-hmm.
if anyone ever told me they had high estrogen, that's something I would be like, hey, do this. Even if it's
Mm-hmm.
50-50 vegan, I
Yeah.
went I went deep. I went deep down the vegan rabbit hole. But
Mhm.
um, but I didn't feel any better. So now when people tell me that they want to feel better, I'm like, from my experience, can't say, yeah, you're going to feel amazing. Cause I was like, I felt the same.
Yeah. So were you like, did your doctor kind of recommend what types of foods to eat, or were you kind of going at it alone and you
Um,
didn't really know like what to eat?
I mean, I knew what to eat. Like I literally knew like I wasn't eating the junk food stuff. You know, did exactly the way you did it. It was like
Mm-hmm.
I literally ate a lot of soups because I just some vegetables I don't like the texture. I have
Oh, okay.
So I literally
Interesting.
I made just like a shit ton of soup for a
Okay.
lot of different things. And in that soup, I put in a lot of beans and pastas and things like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I lived a lot I lived a lot off of soup. That was like my go-to, but it was like, I
Mm-hmm.
would roast the vegetables and all this other stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe it's kind of like, you hear about like a movie and
Mm-hmm.
everyone tells you the movie's amazing. You go see the
Mm,
movie and you're like, eh. So I
it's all
think
right.
maybe in my mind, everyone's like, oh my God, when I went vegan, I had so much energy, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And I think because I was like just so energyless for so long that I thought like, okay,
Mm,
this could possibly be something to give me energy. And it just didn't happen. So
mm.
you know, for people that you work with, do they find that, getting rid of, some of the meat, does it give them the energy that they're looking for? Does it relieve some of the heaviness that they're have in their, digestive systems?
Definitely. Like all my one-on-one clients that I've had have gotten some level of results, whether it's weight loss. Like I had one client who was a male and he wanted to actually gain weight, and we were able to do that as well. So it really depends on like the person and what they're going for, but we have gotten transformations for all of them, and a lot of times they are feeling more energized. Their skin clears up, their digestive system gets better. One of my clients was actually concerned because she was pooping so much. I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
girl, that's normal, like that's good,
Yeah,
you
that's all that
want to be
fiber.
doing that. Yeah, like vegan shits are the best. Like so much poop anyways.
Yeah, well, it's good for you to know because I think many people, because they don't have a lot of fiber in their diet,
Mhm.
and so and then also when you kind of start like, especially if you went the cold turkey route and you just
Mm,
like dove in, your body's like, whoa,
yeah.
and you're gonna have some quality time in the bathroom. So
Oh yeah.
don't think that you're like, oh crap, something's wrong with me. No, that's
Right.
just your body hasn't had that one amount of natural fiber for
Mhm.
probably ever.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's like something crazy, like 95% of Americans aren't getting their recommended amount of fiber.
Yeah.
It's insane. So I always joke that like, oh, it's the the other percentage is like the 2% of vegans out there in the world. But that's not necessarily true because there's a ton of vegans that are not getting their fiber either.
True.
So
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay. So I just want, I'm glad to hear that, certain people can find that will get that energy from there. So,
Yeah. I think you're one of the first people to tell me like you felt the exact same. Like I've never heard of that happening.
yeah.
Even when my boyfriend went vegan, like he wasn't particularly like healthy vegan. But even then, like he lost weight, and like I did like a side by side of both of us because whenever he changed to vegan is when I started transitioning to like whole foods plant-based. And it's just crazy. Like you can see it in our faces too, where we had lost weight and like weren't as inflamed. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you go in any vegan Facebook group and people are like, oh, I've lost whatever pounds, or like, I'm off my diabetes medication, I'm off my cholesterol meds, my skin is cleared up, just like so many good health benefits. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to like, what are you actually eating, and is it enough? And getting down to like whatever issue you're trying to solve with a plant-based diet, like knowing the real background of that issue, like getting your blood tests done, to know, what is actually going on behind the scenes, because you could be tired and it could be a million different things.
Right. And so I'm going to just kind of put a asterisk on the weight loss here.
Mm-hmm.
The asterisk here is that if you are deciding to go vegan because you think you're going to lose weight, I'm going to tell you that it's not 100% guarantee. I've
Mm-hmm.
met plenty of vegans that have weight to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So as we talked about earlier, it's just a matter of your food choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're overdoing it with the peanut butter and the beans and the legumes, you're going to be real hard pressed to lose some weight there. So, so you can overeat calories,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to really think about, if you are going down that weight loss route, have a conversation with a professional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to piece it together with like freebies that you find on the internet.
Oh my God, yeah.
Work with a professional who can
Mm-hmm.
better guide you through the process. Just because I'm vegan, I'm keto, I'm Whole30, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that, it's not a slam dunk for weight loss. So I just got to
So true.
throw it out there. What's a slam dunk for weight loss is a calorie deficit and following a process so that you know what the hell's going on, so that oh, when I eat this, I feel like that. When I eat that, I feel like this. And that's how, one of the things I did learn from my 6 months is like what foods worked with me and what foods didn't.
Yeah. And that also brings up another good point that I like totally didn't mention. It was such an integral part of my healthy vegan journey, going from like junk food to plant-based, was keeping a food journal of like, what did I
Yeah.
eat that day and how much of it? Because you don't like, you can't, what's it called? I totally blanked. Like if you don't track it, how will you know?
I know. Yes. I think it's Robin Sharma. Could be wrong. He goes, what gets measured gets done.
Yes. Yes,
So
definitely.
I know, trust me, food journals are a pain in the ass, but how do you know, right? It's like, you guys know, I love CSI. That's one of my favorite shows. Dead body in the room. Does like Horatio walk in and be like, someone hit him in the head with a hammer and walks out? No, he collects all the evidence and goes back to the lab to figure out what the hell is going on.
It's like paying off debt, for example. Like, how will you know how long it's going to take you if you don't know what's in the bank right now, or like what your balance is?
125%. 125%. All right. This has been like more than what I wanted. This was like, I like set the bar. I'm like, if I can talk about these 3 things, I'm ecstatic. We've blown those 3 things out of the water. And
Yay!
I absolutely love that. So the one thing I have left to ask all of my guests is, what makes you feel magical?
Is it cheesy if I say vegetables?
No, that's not cheesy. Now, do you have like a special, like, do you have like a go-to vegetable? Like, you're like, in my pantry every single week, this is in my pantry.
It's definitely broccoli for me. And that's partially also because I've just like, since I was a little girl, I was super hippie and I always thought they looked like little trees. And I just love the idea of eating little trees. Also, I was one of those weird kids that actually loved their vegetables when I was young. So I like have this really clear memory of eating at a Chinese restaurant, and I had ordered beef and broccoli, like obviously pre-vegan, pre-vegetarian days. And I was like separating the beef out from the broccoli and eating the broccoli first. And the waitress was so shocked. She was blown away. She was like, oh my God, how do you get your child to eat vegetables like that? Asking my mom. So yeah, I really love broccoli ever since I was little.
That's awesome. Yeah. broccoli, I think for a lot of people, I think broccoli is kind of one of those like in the top 5 of vegetables that people will eat,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, where
Yeah.
I think a lot of other vegetables are a little too aggressive. Although now I want to say it's maybe started in the last like 7-ish years, Brussels sprouts. If you would
Mm,
have thrown a Brussels sprout at me, maybe when I was a kid, I would have like been like, no, like it's just
same.
not gonna
Yeah.
happen. Now I'm like, oh, bring them on.
Yeah. Now I see them at bars, like as
I
served as like bar food. I'm like, okay,
Yes,
yeah, I'll have some Brussels sprouts with my beer.
right. Well, that's how like my husband started to eat Brussels sprouts. My husband likes 5
Mhm.
vegetables, literally 5. And so I like he was like, Kim, I was out and I had these Brussels sprouts and it had pancetta in it and da, 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 da. And I'm like, the fact that you even put that into your lips, I'm just shocked. So
That's awesome.
I started putting the pancetta in it, and then I slowly started to pull the pancetta out of it, and just
Hmm.
put some olive oil and like cook the crap out of it so it's nice and
Hmm.
crispy. And he now likes
Nice. Yeah. So good.
it. All right. So thank you so much. And so I found you on Instagram. Where can people
Hmm.
find you? Give your handle so I can put that in the show notes for them.
Definitely. Yeah. Instagram is my favorite place to hang out. So my handle is Veggie Vale. That's VEGIVALE. And my website is the same, VEGIVALE.com. I also have a free Facebook community called Plant-Based Nutrition for the Energized Entrepreneur. So go live in there every Tuesday, sharing my favorite tips. And it's just a fun place to hang out with all my peoples.
I love it. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for this conversation. And you guys, if you have any questions, comments, she gave you her information, reach out to her. She gives you the straight stuff, just even in her content on Instagram. But if you have a specific question, I know she will answer it. No problem.
Yes, thank you so much. And one quick thing I just wanted to add, I love saying like you have 2 forever homes in this lifetime, the earth and your body. And a plant-based
Mm.
diet can help with both of those, taking care of them. So you can feel truly energized every day. So if you're listening to this and you're curious at all, like don't be shy. I love, love, love meeting new people. Like please send me a DM so that we can connect because that's what I'm here to do. That's my life's calling. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. This has been great. All right, Magic Makers, you got your vegan fix. So hit me up, screenshot this, and give me one takeaway that you got from this show. And be sure to tag Valeria as well. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you've made it this far, yay. I'm thinking you enjoyed the show. Let's continue the conversation on Instagram. You can find me at Kim Jefferson Coach. In order for me to keep sharing this message, do me a favor and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. New episodes are available every Wednesday. The Fit Girl Magic podcast is intended to provide you with tips, tools, and strategies that will help you make better decisions about your health. I really appreciate your feedback and your support. Thank you so much.